Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited that we get to kick this off together. Based off of the reaction, I get that you all know who's here and how great they are, but let's just make sure we're all on the same page. We have Jay Ellis, actor extraordinaire. We all know you from Insecure, The Game, yes. Masters of Sex, Grace and Frankie, How I Met Your Mother, Somebody I Used to Know, Top Gun Maverick, the list goes on and on. You're also a philanthropist and an EP, and of course you're in Freaky Tales, so welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Oh, hey. Thank you, guys.
And of course we have Sue Bird. And correct me if any of this is wrong. 4-time WNBA champion, 5-time Olympic gold medalist, 4-time FIBA world champion, 5-time EuroLeague championships, 13-time WNBA All-Star. Yes.
You nailed it.
Yeah, okay. To get us started, Sue, you are deservedly often called the greatest, an icon. But I want to know, what's something else that you're great at that maybe we don't know about?
God, I saw this question and I was like, Megan, what am I great at? Honestly, I'm an excellent travel agent.
Okay.
Yeah, when we need to book flights and figure things out, or if something's canceled, I am like on it.
Okay, so you're organized.
So I feel like, when I'm reincarnated, that's what I'm gonna come back as.
Yeah.
Which is really just to say I'm really good with logistics and details, which when you watch the film, you'll see it all plays out in who I am.
Yeah. Jay, same question. I want to know, what's something we don't know that you're great at?
There's nothing, to be honest. I'm so glad my wife's not here. I just found out that I'm a good baker.
Me too.
Yeah, like I'm pretty decent. My daughter really wanted to bake a cake, and I was like, all right, let's figure it out. And we've done like far more cakes than we could ever eat, but it's been amazing.
Okay, you're a cake person. I'm a chocolate chip cookie person, so yes, with the salt on top, you both are part of Sue Bird in The Clutch, the film. So I wonder if we could start about how that film came about, how the team came about. Jay, do you want to start since you're the executive producer?
Yeah, I've known Sue's career forever, sorry. But like I've known Sue's career even from actually in high school. Like I played high school basketball and I played college basketball, but like when you start to hear about other schools and other high schools and how they compete at such a high level. And so like I actually knew Christ the King and like knew about Sue, I guess that's late 90s now, early mid 90s. And I've always just followed her career. Along the way, my producing partner, Aaron Bergman, who's really good friends with Ryan Rucco, who is like the voice of the WNBA and also happens to be really good friends with Sue, introduced us all. And this question came up of like, is Sue gonna retire? When is Sue gonna retire? And if so, can we do a doc on her? And so Ryan went and did some recon for us. And then we got on a Zoom with Sue and we just talked about it. And we were like, hey, we don't know if you're retiring and we know you're not gonna tell us. I would have called TMZ, I'm not gonna lie. But we were like, listen, this is what we wanna do and this is how we would wanna put a team together and these are the partners that we would wanna have in this. And Sue was really open to it and really receptive. She took a minute to think about it. But she was really open and like receptive to the conversation and she said yes and we hit the ground running and partnered with Jigsaw and then we found Sarah, our fearless leader, and Emily and then Waffle Iron came on and we were off.
Sue, I mean, you said it took just a moment for you to sign on. Can you talk a little bit about what eventually confirmed that this was the team, this was the time to do this film?
I think in large part, it was my friendship with Ryan, right? Like, of course, I trust him. So when he's like, hey, my good friend Aaron and his partner Jay, who obviously I knew from Insecure, when he gave them that like vote of confidence, I was like, okay, I can trust these people. And then they gave me like a pretty cool pitch, used my own words against me, which was, at some point I must have said in a, hey, when are you gonna retire, was the question. At some point I must have said like, oh, till my knees fucking fall off. And so they threw that back at me and I was like, okay, touche. We had actually just won the 2020 WNBA championship, which was the bubble season. Successful in so many ways, both on and off the court. Again, on the court for us because we won, off the court in terms of the activism we did. So I think I was on a little bit of a high, both for myself, because we just won, so I was feeling myself a little bit, but also just like, wow, we're in a moment. There's a moment for women's basketball right now, a moment for women's sports. And my story is kind of this interesting, it falls in this unique place in that I'm clearly, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, wildly successful in my own field. And obviously tons of people know me. I mean, Ryan, we were just talking about this last night. It's like, literally people ask me to sign their skin and then they go get it tattooed. So obviously people know me, but then also women's sports is still on this, in this a little bit of an uphill climb and trying to, but 2020 really marked a pivotal moment. And so I just felt like it was really important in that moment to tell a story. We're always talking about how we need more stories. And then in that moment particularly to tell my story. But yeah, I didn't know if I was gonna retire, which obviously led to the 2-year process. Sorry about that.
Well, Sue, you're so, you're in the spotlight, you're used to doing interviews, you have cameras on you. Was being the main protagonist of a documentary, was that any different? Was there something that you had to sort of get used to?
It really, yes and no. I mean, yeah, sometimes when they would want to film me, putting my uniform on or putting my hair in a ponytail, no, there's not usually a camera in those moments. But then at other times, it's not an experience I wasn't unfamiliar with. And I think for a lot of it, I just tried to remind myself that the more, because I am a little more on the reserve side, the more I opened up, the more I was willing, the more I was embracing of it all, the better the doc would be. I was constantly telling myself that. Because I think there were times, especially as a player, you're in the heat of the moment, heat of a season, where you want to just be like, okay, not right now. But I was like, oh, it'd be good for the doc though. And so I just tried to keep that balance. And also, again, because it was the season, make sure I was staying true to doing what I needed to do to play well on the court. Because ultimately, that's what has to happen. There was one game, I think it was in 2021, where I could have maybe hit a clutch shot, and I missed, and I was like, fuck. Yes, we lost, but I was like, oh, I was gonna mess the doc up. Yeah.
As if she hadn't had a billion other clutch shots in her career that we could pull.
I'm like, it's called in the clutch.
Yeah. You're dedicated. You're a dedicated documentary protagonist. Jay, I mean, clearly you're here also with Freaky Tales, and I'm wondering, you have this, personal connection to this film. I'm wondering if there's a difference in sort of how you approach the projects that you want to EP versus the projects that you want to, be a lead in.
No, I think it's all the same. At the end of the day, I want to be proud. It's something I want to be able to talk about. I think. I find myself drawn to underdog stories in a lot of ways. I think I find myself drawn to stories. We talk about this a lot. Even this was part of our pitch to Sue. Is Aaron and I always talk about we love taking worlds we think we know, tilting them on their axis, and showing you that world from a different point of view. And I feel like I've been able to play characters in Lawrence, who was this black dude living in South LA, who had graduated from college and was wildly vulnerable, and also didn't know how to use his words and talk because he was too afraid. I felt like that was a guy that we don't get to see every day. And so that was an opportunity to do something that I am still wildly proud of. And I think on the doc side, it's the same thing. We think we know women's basketball, but the reality of it is we really kind of know it because of its proximity to men's basketball. And that's really the lens in which we know it. And so in my mind, in our minds, this entire creative team, having Sue tell her story, deservingly so, was also an opportunity to tell this story of women's basketball that we don't get told from the women who actually played the game, right? It's their proximity to men is when we recognize it, and we're like, oh yeah, she plays too, that's cool. But it's this is an opportunity for us to show that this is its own thing, and it's huge, and it's wildly successful, and there are people like Sue who are ultimate champions of not just basketball, but all the other things in her life that are important to her.
Can I just add something? I think what's beautiful about doing this project, and hearing you say that and working with everyone who was a part of it, Jay obviously named them, although I'm seeing them here in the front row, that's why I keep motioning this way, is true. A lot of times for women's basketball specifically, it's only been looked at through this male lens, and that doesn't fit. right? And so of course it's not going to get the shine it deserves. It's not going to get the credit it deserves. But it takes people, this front row, and you, Jay. So I just want to thank you. I'm going to thank you 1,000 times this weekend, but it takes people to see that and want to tell that story, because we've been screaming from the rooftops, but it takes people to believe that and see it and want to tell it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
I think one of the things that I love about the film so much, and you all will see when you go to the premiere on Sunday, is that, of course, we get to see this trajectory of women's basketball, but I just found like so many of the gems that you were dropping just applied to life across like anything. I'm not an athlete. I was supposed to play basketball. It didn't work out. I played soccer instead. But I like you were speaking. I was like, oh, but how do you do that? Like, how do you push through? Like, how do you maintain confidence? And so I just wanted to pick out one, a part of the film where you talk about your role as a point guard and how you have to be confident, how you have to know the answers. And I just wanted to know, how is that playing out in other areas of your life too now?
Good question. Well, I mean, I don't view it as other areas of my life. I think a lot of my identity is being a basketball player. I've been doing it since I was 5 years old. So it's really, through sport, the foundation of who I am as a person has been formed. And part of that has to do with, I wasn't the tallest. My dad called me Peanut for like a large portion of my childhood when I started playing basketball, because I was so tiny out there. I didn't hit my big growth spurt until middle of high school. Crapped out at 5'9", which is fine. I like to say I'm a tall point guard. It's fine. But I had to find other ways, right? That was just the game lends to being tall. Tall people rule it. So you have to find other ways, and that's really where I found, how I could impact the game, not with points, rebounds, assists, which obviously came later, but in other ways. And I think that's where I built my, I guess identity is the best word, on how I was going to impact that game through my teammates, through how we played together, bringing people together. And how I see that playing out is really just the same. Yeah. When I'm in other rooms now, I just have a tendency to want to get to know people, want to know how they work, what's going to make the group work, this whole idea of having this common goal, but then you have to kind of rewind back to step one and pick out how we're all going to be successful and bring our best selves to kind of come together and achieve that, even if we don't always agree. Yeah. That's honestly the best thing that sports teaches you, is in the moments when you don't get along, how to do it. Yeah. So I'm just kind of all the things I learned as a player. Yeah. It's just now naturally, because as my therapist likes to say, wherever you go, there you are. Yeah. And it's really true.
It's facts. It's facts.
I'm available if you guys need me. I'm not just exclusive to Sue. I just want you to know.
I mean, Jay, you said you also played, so I just wonder, what lessons from being an athlete did you carry through in this career as an actor and an executive producer?
Yeah, my trajectory is obviously wildly different than Sue's. There's no gold medals at my house or championships. But I think it was this, I will say this, I think the teamwork is the biggest thing that I take from it. I think it's like going back to what Sue said. I don't find as tough as filmmaking is, as a lot of you know, when you walk on set and like something happens that is not in the production's control, not in the director's control, whatever it may be, and you have to find a way to get the work done for the day. And also you have to do it truthfully, and you have to be fully engaged and locked in, and you have to know that at the end of the day, like, this is gonna go live somewhere and people are gonna go see it, and you want people to go see it. I think the thing that I always come back to is like, I'm so grateful for my foundation in sports, because it ultimately taught me, like, I am nothing if my cameraman is not there holding that camera, right? If my AC is not pulling focus, what's the point of me even being there? Like, you start to realize, for me, how like my performance is such a small part of the entire process. It's the most important part, but it's such a small part. Ask Ryan and Anna after you see Freaky Tales. It's the most important. But anyway, it's not important. It's not important. But you start to realize that like it takes a village to make those performances. There's a lot of people who, like, whether it's hair, whether it's makeup, whether it's wardrobe, set deck, props, all of the above, like, that is a team. And we all have to be clicking, and we all have to know, like, what we're supposed to do and show up and do our jobs to the best on shitty days, on great days. And, like, to me, in a lot of ways, like, that is what I get from my foundation in sports.
Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, or let me know what you think, but I also was drawing a connection with this, like the persistence and the resilience and the needing to continue in the face of adversity. And in the film, Sue, your UConn coach, Coach Gino Ariema, he talks about how he would push the team, push all of you by setting you up kind of for failure in a sense, and some players would shrink from that, whereas others would be like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And of course, Sue, you were one of those people. And I'm just so fascinated by, like, what in you makes you do that? Like,
I feel like my answer to this would have been different if I was 21 and just graduated. Sitting here now, I'm like, because he's so annoying, and you just want to be like, shut the up. Like, literally, I'm like, have you seen him yell at players? It's like, you just want to be like, he would put you in these impossible scenarios, and the quicker you learned that all it was like a fork in the road, like this choice to make of, like, letting him beat you. And his whole point, his whole shtick was, it's going to be harder in the games, right? Like, it's going to be harder. So if you can't beat this, like, you have no chance over there. So then, in a way, he almost tried to flip it and make it even harder in practice to kind of get you to taste it. Anyway, so he put you in these impossible situations, and you started to realize this fork, this choice of, okay, I can either give into this, which it's not that I never wanted to. And by the way, it's not that at times I didn't. You know, it's not that I beat him every single time. But you start to learn, the more you take that second choice and the more you figure it out on your own, and the more that you do beat him, he represents so much in this little story. You just develop more and more confidence, and that becomes addicting in a way, because you start to feel it. Not confidence given to me because Coach Ariema said, hey, you're a really good player. Hey, if you want to be on an Olympic team, you can. Hey, do you want to be an All-American? That's one form of confidence, because it's really great when people believe in you, but it's a whole different form when you're doing it and building it yourself, because it comes from within, and then you feel that, and nobody can take that. And that's really what those moments in college, that's really what came from them. But yeah, a lot of it was I just wanted to give him the, like, finger. So thanks, Coach.
Jay, do you have a connection to that? I mean, how did you build confidence throughout your career?
I did. No, I think it's a similar thing. I think you hear no so often. It's like, how do you react to the no? Which in my mind is like, how do you react to a loss if you're in a game, right? It's how you bounce back from that. And I think, to Sue's point, it's what you learn from that for yourself and for the people around you, and just doing it over and over and over again. And hopefully you take a lesson with you along the way. I am the most dramatic of people. I remember the first time I ever tested for a pilot and I didn't get it. I wore black for like 2 weeks straight because I was in mourning. And I let people know I was in mourning. And so, like, it took me a while to figure out, like, oh, every no is just me getting closer to my yes. Right? Every door closed is just like, all right, well, the next one's gonna open, or the next one's gonna open. Like, I can't get caught up in that no, because it wasn't for me, and that's fine. But I can take something from that, learn it. I can take the feeling of how I crushed an audition and what I felt like, even if I wasn't the choice. I could take that feeling and know what I wanted to walk into the next room feeling like. And I think that was it took me a long time to get there, but that was the way that I ultimately had to, like, deal with it for myself.
Sue, in the film, we get to see you reflect back on throughout the years of your career, and there are some moments where we see you reflect on some tough games, and we still see sort of the hurt of the loss. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about sort of being open and having that vulnerability to still share when you're frustrated, when you have regrets or heartache, rather.
Yeah, I mean, they do. They still sting. It's interesting because I have won so much, but it is the perfectionist in me. It's, the reason why you play is to try to win, and I always feel like there are teams that you're on that you don't necessarily. if you really think about it, you're like, do we have a chance to win? That happens. But sometimes you have to be a little realistic. But some of the losses I've had, when you watch the doc, you'll see one of them in college, one of them in the WNBA. I truly felt like we could have won and should have won in a lot of ways. And those are the ones that just really hurt, and that continues to linger. I mean, the one in college was literally 2001. I mean, a very long time ago. And even now, I was with a college teammate recently, and we were talking about it. And like lamenting over the fact, like, it could have been 5 in a row. We already had one. We would have won that one. And then they rattled off another 3 after that. It would have been 5. Anyways.
Do your 5 gold medals balance that out at all?
No, we were supposed to win those, and we did. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. But it's easy to share that, A, because it's just real. I can't not, clearly. But also, I do think, I mean, Jay, you really just said it. There's so much learned from those moments. When I think about the one in college, I don't know that the rest of my career plays out the way it does. That happened my junior year, if that loss doesn't happen. So even though you want to look back and you wish you could go back and change something, the reality is, the rest of the story doesn't play out that way if those losses don't happen. So I think they were lessons for me that I learned from, and I feel like sharing them, other people can learn from them too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Would you say, I mean, because you mentioned sort of a difference between heartache and regrets and not having a lot of regrets, and I'm wondering if, because you were feeling like you could have won that game, is that what puts it in the regret category versus like the heartache category?
That's like a very subtle, there's like a nuance there that makes it different. I actually don't regret. I don't feel a lot of regret around my career. Every now and then there might be like some choices, or I'm like, oh, I could have done that differently. But again, I really believe that it kind of had to play out the way it did in order to get certain places and do certain things or meet certain people even. One quick story that I think tells that is I had hit a plateau in my career, probably like mid-30s, early to mid-30s, and had I not kind of took this, I like to do a plateau, I probably did a little bit of this though. Had that not happened, I wouldn't have hired Susan Borchard, who is even currently, I mean, if you could imagine this, I'm retired. I'm still like, Susan, can you do my workouts? I don't know how to do this on my own. Had I not hired her, I don't think I would have played as long as I've played, which means I don't get 2 more WNBA championships, I don't get 2 more gold medals. So sometimes the bad has to happen in order for things to shift and change, and then it turns out good. So I really don't have a lot of regret. Those losses, you can just look back and wish things would have, like Alicia Ratai went off a stagger, and I shot the gap, and I should have trailed her, and she hit a 3 going in half, and I'll never forget it. So I do regret that, actually.
I'm always so impressed by athletes' memory, like so precise, the memory.
We're sick.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
We're sick.
You both ended up in the spotlight, and I wonder if that was part of like your dreams as children.
I mean, for me, I don't think so. I think I just wanted to act. And for me, anything that came along with that meant I was doing my job and that people watched it and felt something and responded to it and they cared about it. And so anything that comes along with that, I actually live under a rock. I really don't. I'm not outside like that. I very much like to be home. But for me, it's like regenerative and like I need that base and I need that grounding. Especially when you're gone for so long or you're traveling. I think I really needed that. But like, I think the goal for me was always like, I just want to act. I just want to tell stories and I want them to reach people and I want people to feel something. You can hate me, you can love me. If you're down the middle, I'm not doing my job. But like, I just wanted people to feel something. And anything else that's happened, I'm very grateful for, but it just means that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Short answer is no. I never thought of anything that came with playing basketball. I just really liked it. I was just classic tomboy in the backyard doing all the sports. And then here we are.
Jay, would you say that you're an introvert?
Am I an introvert?
I mean, you can be.
Am I? No. Ryan says no, but Aaron says yes. Am I an introvert? These guys say no.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I am.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I grew up an only child. My dad was in the Air Force. I went to 12 schools in 13 years.
Yeah.
I moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So like I often had to walk into rooms with friend groups that were already established or teams that were already established, and I had to find a way to get in.
Yeah.
So I don't find myself uncomfortable walking into a room and having to meet people. I do like being at home though.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
I'm
It's
a homebody.
interesting.
It's an introvert,
Okay,
introvert
yeah,
extrovert.
that's why I was asking. I'm
Yeah.
also an only child military family, so
Hey,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Sue, because in the film you talk about sort of being more reserved, and so I think that's why I was asking the question about what you thought as a child, because you're doing this thing that you love that puts you in the spotlight, and how do you reconcile that? Was it uncomfortable? Was the love of basketball? You're just like, this is what I have to do. I have to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, I think at some point, I'm trying to think. When I switched high schools, and I went to Christ the King, like Jay mentioned, and it was definitely a bigger stage. You know, we're nationally ranked, so local media is gonna, take a little bit more. That's when I started to realize, like, oh, I got to do more interviews. There's gonna just be more limelight around this. And then, of course, when I went to college, then it just like smacks you in the face, and you realize, okay, this is just a part of it.
Yeah.
This is just what it is. So no, it was never a desire or like any ambition there. I think I just accepted it as, okay, I'm an athlete, and if I'm gonna play on these big stages and win championships, like this comes with it.
Yeah. And I mean, you also use your platform. You're an activist, and I wonder how you decided to sort of be confident in that decision to use the spotlight for matters that matter to you.
Combination of things. I think as an athlete, I've just been uniquely positioned. This isn't specific to me. I think this is like every athlete. You're in a lot of different locker rooms. You're exposed to a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. And I mean, I lived in Russia for 10 years. It's like you're just exposed to all different things. And it both made me personally just a much more well-rounded person, but it also let me understand and let me see that my experience, especially as a white woman in this country, like isn't other people's experiences. And I got to see that firsthand and hear stories and become curious and ask questions. So you kind of have like that running in the backdrop. I also think when I look back on my career, there's a lot of my career that really is synonymous to, it's almost like parallel path to the growth of the women's game, right? And sometimes plateau, sometimes maybe a little dip, and then you come back on the other side. I think women's basketball, it's very similar. And so we parallel path. And when I think back to first getting drafted to probably, somewhere in the 2016 range. I was very much just happy to have a job, and I felt like I was, non-verbally told to shut up and dribble in a way. Diana Taurasi and I joke about that all the time. Like, yeah, we came from the shut up and dribble generation, where we were like, cool, we didn't want to rock the boat. It wasn't, and so having a platform and being an activist and talking about the things that we bitched and moaned about behind closed doors, for sure, and with friends and whatnot, but it never, in our wildest, I never thought to take that publicly. It just didn't feel right. So then you fast forward to 2016, and from that point on, and really the quickest way to tell it is, I feel like if I didn't use my platform, if I didn't use my voice, then I'd be doing a major disservice, and I already just wasted like 15 years of not using it. And the beauty of it is, as this like older experienced player, I think my voice had a different weight to it, just because I had this lived experience to pull from.
Yeah, Jay, you're also a philanthropist, so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what are some of the things that you're really drawn to that are really important to you.
I think at the end of the day, it's just like an understanding of the human condition. Like, we're all here together. The shit is getting hot. It's hot everywhere. We all feeling the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things that we are all connected in this way, whether we want to recognize it or not. I have a feeling a lot of people in this room maybe do, as for lovers of film. But I just think that, like, for me, it's always just been about equity and, like, how do we all start from the same place and how do we get there? And then how do we, like, also just reach back and, like, if you are fortunate enough to have a platform and you see these younger players coming in, and like at that point, like I'm assuming in Sue's career, she's like, well, what do I gotta lose? Like I've done a lot of this and I'm a badass, like I'm not going anywhere. But it's like, I feel like part of my duty in all of this and part of my job and responsibility in a lot of way with this platform that I've been given is to like reach my hand back and like bring people up. Otherwise, why the hell are we doing it? Like, it's not worth just doing it for self at the end of the day, because then you're alone. You know what I mean? And so I just...
You bring up equity. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about sort of, what most excites you about sort of where the WNBA was when you came in from where it is now in women's sports in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly excited for where women's sports is. I think the way I've always said it is it feels like society caught up to us finally. Like we've been up here waiting, like, hey, it's us. Like, we're talking about the right things, we're representing the right things. We're obviously badass athletes, so we're performing on a really high level. And finally, people started noticing, and you're seeing it. And for me, if I had to pick one thing that excites me, it's seeing all the media deals. The NWSL just signed one, women's college basketball just signed one, the WNBA one is up soon. Because that's really, I think, in a lot of ways in our country, how we value, right? We talk about the NBA's media deal, and we talk about, the MLS, how they signed that huge one with Apple TV, all sports across the board in their deals. So now there's actual numbers and data and tangible factoids, if you will, that you can say like, no, college basketball just sold their rights for $65 million a year. Yeah. So shut the fuck up. Yeah. Sorry, I'm like cursing a lot. I don't know. But a lot of people doubt you, and you're trying to tell them, you're like, no, I swear, 20,000 people were just at my game. No, viewership's up, I promise. But it's these media deals that really speak. And so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, you're also involved in creating media, and so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. I mean, in the film, you talk about how you're part of this first class, you liked establishing, creating, sort of setting a standard, so to speak. And so now I want to know, like, what's the next thing that you're setting the standard for?
I think in a lot of ways, given the trajectory of my career, I was sort of the first, right? Like, not just me, like my generation of player. There were some older players that were technically the firsts, the Lisa Leslies, Cheryl Swoops, Rebecca Lobo, like they started the WNBA. But the life I lived and the life they lived, totally different. Totally different experiences, going from college straight to the WNBA, playing overseas, playing for your national team, juggling all these things. That is more of what the modern day WNBA player experiences. So I think my career is really sort of a blueprint in a way of what could be, and you can learn from it, pull from it. You know what? In 10 years, the landscape could change, and there could be somebody else who's now living like the first thing that comes to mind is like an Asia Wilson. She doesn't go overseas. So now it might be she's gonna forge this whole new path. But right now, for this current, my path was kind of the one that people could follow. And I feel really passionate about being able to pay it forward, being able to share that knowledge. And then now I'm noticing, I'm kind of like the first retired player, one of the first retired players that had this long career, one of the longest, if not the longest, and going into, I have Together, a media and commerce company. Megan and I have a production company at Touch More. I'm getting into other businesses. And that can be this whole other blueprint for when WNBA players retire. Because sometimes it's the see it, be it. It always comes back to the see it, be it. Sometimes you just don't know what's possible, and then somebody does it. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't mean they follow in your footsteps. It just means you're showing them what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, and as a player, I mean, you speak about bringing the best out of your teammates, and I see that getting into media too, sort of creating spaces for other people's stories, and so to me, like it makes total sense that you would go from being this player to.
My favorite thing in the world right now is seeing when Together, who I'm not like hands-on. That's not like a day-to-day operation thing for me. Very much involved, but not day to day. So sometimes I open Instagram and I'm like, ooh, there's a new story. When I see WNBA players and Together interacting, the Sid and TP show is a great example. But when I see Together showcasing WNBA players, like that's actually a way in which I've helped create a vehicle for these people meaning WNBA players, to have their stories told. I'm like, wow, that's like blowing my mind, because it's like what we always wanted, and it's actually happening. Other athletes as well, but obviously WNBA, a little different.
Is there anything you can tease us with for a Touch More? Are you allowed?
No.
No? Okay. It's fine. It's
Who's
fine.
in the room?
Yeah, okay. It's a
Stay
small
tuned.
platform. Yeah, no, it's okay.
We'll be up here next year. No,
Yeah.
no.
Jay, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, this can be a hard question, but if you're fast forwarding 10 years, what are some of the things you'd love to see that you're doing?
To quote the great Sue Bird, I'm gonna act until my fucking knees fall off.
I mean, according to you, Freaky Tales might have just put you in the grave.
Yeah, Freaky Tales did a number. I will say, like, I hope to be back at this festival with another film. This is something that's super important to me. I've always loved this festival, and I remember Jay Gassner, my agent, who is sitting here right now, the very first time we met, literally the first thing I said to him is like, I want to be in a film at Sundance. Yeah. It took Jay 5 years to make it happen. I'm joking, Jay. I'm joking. No, but this is super important to me. Like, I as a kid, growing up and hearing about Sundance and, like, obviously, like, knowing Robert Redford's work and his legacy, like, this has just always been a place that I've wanted to be, and as an actor, and to be able to do that and to be here is like, I will never forget this moment. Like, this is so wild. But also to be here and, like, as a producer and be here with Sue and, like, to hopefully bring more projects here in that realm as well. Like, I am very much looking forward to. But at the end of the day, like, I love movies. Like, I want to go make movies. Like, that's what I absolutely love to do. I love playing, like, super complex characters. I love playing people that, like, folks root for. I love being messy, because we all are, every single one of you. And that's just life. That's just who we are as people. And I just enjoy the challenge of getting up every day and slipping into someone else's skin and doing that and live for that.
Yeah. Have you all seen Freaky Tales yet? I'm just curious. Yes. Okay. I mean, what a wild and amazing movie. And I just want to know, what drew you to that script? When you saw the script, what was like, yes?
Well, Ryan and Anna were my yes. I'm not going to lie. Obviously knew Half Nelson, knew Sugar, knew all of their work. But I had worked with them right after Top Gun. I finished Top Gun on like a Monday. My last flight on a Wednesday, I was in Toronto filming Mrs. America for the first time with Ryan and Anna, who were directing the episode. And I immediately fell in love with them. And I felt very comfortable. I've been fortunate to feel very comfortable with a lot of directors very quickly. But like, this was like, oh, I feel like I've known y'all my whole life. Like, it was just one of those things. And so I remember Jelani Johnson, who's over at Macro, sent me a text message, and he was like, hey, we're gonna send you this script. It's a movie called Freaky Tales. Ryan and Anna are thinking, they want you to come on this movie. You're the first person they thought about. And in the meantime, they had sent me an email. And I replied back to their email, and I said, I'm in. And I hadn't read the script yet. Because I was that comfortable with Ryan and Anna. Like, I just felt like I would show up to be an extra for them. Like, I had no issues with that. Like, I truly love them and respect them and value them that much. And then I read the script.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the movie, or when you see the movie, you'll understand why those chuckles just happened, because you can't be grounded in reality. You have to just go on the ride with this movie, because it is so wild, it is so freaky, and the character that I got to play in Sleepy Floyd has this other thing that he's amazing at, and he gets to go on a wild, very Kill Bill style like revenge spree, and I was just, again, a dude who's at a height, he gets fully leveled by something that happens in the movie to him, and he's at an absolute bottom, like fully distraught. And then he gets this little bit of news, and then he's like, I'm gonna go fight for the fucking underdog, and I'm gonna make this right. And like, that was a story that I just love. I identify with it so much, and getting to do all of that action along the way was amazing. And broke my back, like Sue said.
Yeah.
That'll take you out before the knees, by the way. Backs are no joke. That'll take you out.
Well, when you talk about how comfortable you were, I just wonder, like, what are the traits that you look for in the people that surround you?
I mean, for me, I would say first thing is, like, I love people who, like, can talk shit.
Okay.
Like, life is very serious, and we all know that. But I need a tease every now and again. I need you to be like, hey man, are your legs gonna get any longer or what? Like I need you to just every once in a while tease me, and be able to obviously take it when I tease back. But I think for me, like I love. I will say this with directors specifically. I love a vision. I'm such a like soldier. I am like, what is your vision? Okay, cool. I can get with that. Now, inside your vision, are you open to like having conversation? And that's where like I feel like I get to make a character mine, as opposed to just what's on the page. And so I love that collaboration. So I look for that first and foremost, like people who are actually open to a thing, and doing this together. And then I think the next piece of that for me is like, and again, I think this goes back to my sports background. If you've had a coach yell at you your entire, like for so long, you can't, you need somebody to just be real. Like you need somebody to just tell you straight. If you tell me you don't like what I just did, like, or if you like want to like paint around it, I'm like, just tell me you didn't like it and give me a note and we'll go fix it. Like I need a straight shooter. And I've been fortunate to work with a lot of straight shooters. And that to me is like super, just it's super valuable because there is something in people who hold no punches, and I don't mean disrespectfully, but I mean like they want the best for you, so they tell you the truth. And that to me is comforting because I know that they actually want the best from this moment and my performance and what I'm doing.
Sue, does that resonate with you? Because I know you talk about your father's brutal honesty, and that was like something that you looked for too.
Yeah, I was going to start with that. Having people around you that are going to tell you the truth, aren't going to compliment sandwich you, aren't going to, paint them like, just tell me. I mean, literally, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, just tell me, and then I know, and then we're good. That's when I think of like when I put it in the sports framework. That's how I think of a coach wanting that out of like the leader. When I think of my teammates, you want to have some lightness to it. I think you need people that know who they are, but also have maybe like a little bit of delusion, because that's how, just like a decent, not like a lot, because then that's annoying and they need to go. But when you have like, you have to have a little bit of delusion that you can do some amazing things, because then, so if you start at the point of knowing who you are and knowing what kind of player you are, knowing what you're capable of, and really like deep diving that and becoming so solid in it, then that delusion is going to expand that. If you don't have any delusion, you're just going to stay in that box. If you have too much, you're never going to go back to that box, which is what got you there in the first place. So having teammates that have that, I think is something that I've tried to have, and I love working with people. And then, you got to be able to take criticism. So there's like a humility piece there, but then back to the joking. And then once you get into the locker room, you have to be able to leave it. So just having, all of these pieces and then just bringing yourself to that. Because that's that unique part is what makes, it's what makes the team go on the court, but it's also what makes the team go off the court in terms of like the shit talking and just having fun.
I mean, I think I'm really interested in this interplay between confidence and humility, because even in, getting to work on stories of other athletes and basketball players, I've noticed this trait of this.
Are you talking about when you won your Oscar? Sorry.
Well, it wasn't on me, but I edited a short that won an Oscar.
Sorry, excuse me.
But yeah, because there's this confidence of like, yes, if you give me the ball, I know what to do. Like, but then there's also this sense of like humility that comes with it too. And so I'm just wondering, like, when do those traits come out? When do they need to come out? Are they always there at the same time?
They're definitely always there at the same time. This is like such an individual's question. I think every athlete you could pull up on here would have a different answer. Some probably skew more towards confidence, borderline cockiness, which is okay, and like the swag aspect. Some probably skew more towards the humility. So it just depends. I think for me, it's skewed more towards humility, but built on confidence. And that's really, as a leader on all the teams, and I talk about this in the doc, that's where I think I knew I could have the most impact was when everybody's eyes eventually fall on me. They need to see somebody who like knows what they're doing. They need to see somebody who has the answer, because then for them, they can just play. And you know what? If they're on that side of like cocky swag, they don't need the humility. Like I can take that on for them, because to be honest, you need all the pieces. I recently said this, I can't remember if I said it in the doc or not, but I always joke, if there were 5 of me on the basketball court, it just wouldn't be a good basketball team. It just really wouldn't. It'd be 5 people like taking temps, and you need like seriously, it's like you need people to get in there. You need people to like I said, on that delusion scale, to be all the way on one side of it. You need all of it. And then I think where I found a lot of my confidence was, oh, I know how to like make this work. I know how to take these different personalities and bring it together. And then you build that equity, that relationship equity, and it's like, oh, I can even yell at them if I need to, and tell them they're doing it wrong, you know? But you have to have a lot of humility, I think, and that served me. Being a little more on that side of it served me. But again, you can't not have, that, even if it's irrational. You can't not have that confidence. And that comes, by the way, from like years of prep. You don't just show up one day, you're like, I'm gonna be confident today.
That's what I was gonna ask. What was that, the evolution of that, and how, when did you start feeling like, oh, I trust myself?
That definitely starts in college. We already touched on Coach Oriema and the impossible situations. That's where I built my confidence, where I figured out who I was as a player. And then I was just able to almost like go out there and like test it out. And the more I tested it out, and you have to have a little bit of fearlessness. You can't be afraid to make mistakes and fail and all the things. The more I tested it out in the WNBA, with the national team, overseas, I was like, oh, it works. I got something here. But yeah, it took years of building that confidence, and it came through just my prep.
I want to talk a little bit about what happens when you reach these goals. Jay, you were talking about you wanted to get into Sundance. Here you are. When you get a gold Olympic medal, do you just automatically think, okay, I got to get another one? Where do you go?
I'm like, I don't know how it is for you. So for us, it might be similar though.
I just said I want to be back at Sundance, so.
I know, maybe similar. No, but so what's interesting about winning is you win. They put the medal, we'll use them Olympics, a little more dramatic. They put the medal on your neck. They play the national anthem. It's like this exhilarating, the most satisfying feeling. For me, it's what I dreamed of as a kid. I didn't dream of the WNBA, it didn't exist. So it's like, I did it. This was my goal. I did it. And then you party. You go to the after parties. You do your thing. It's amazing. And then you wake up the next morning. And really for the next couple of days, you're just trying to recreate that night, and you can't. It's like really hard to get back to that just like exhilaration, back to that moment of like the game ending. It's really hard to repeat it. And so you realize that, and you're like, okay, I'm trying. It's like those times, I'm gonna sound like a lush for 2 seconds. It's like those times where you're like, I'm drinking, but I'm not drunk. Like, what's happening? Like, what's going on here? Every now and then you have those moments. Maybe just me? Okay.
No,
okay.
I know what you mean.
It's kind of like that. It's not just specific to drinking, though, even though I know partying, but it's like the next couple of days, you're like trying to relive this high that you just can't get to, and then you're like, oh, I gotta do it again. It's the only way to get it. And in a way, it's addicting. And so you're just constantly trying to get to that place. Because, like I said, there's nothing more satisfying. And there's really nothing. My favorite part about winning is no one can say shit to you. You're like, what? Oh, I turned it over? Look at this. There's nothing you can say. It's the ultimate, like, clap back.
I mean,
I wish there was an acting version of that.
I was gonna ask, what is that version?
I don't know. I want to find out. And I'm going to have Sue coach me there to get there, to be quite honest.
Maybe it's like, I feel like when I watch the Oscars, the Emmys, all of them, people get up there and they're like, it's that, right?
Yeah.
That moment where you have the trophy and you're like, look, no one can say shit to me.
I've never held an Oscar, so.
But you're at Sundance.
But it's somebody's job in this room to get me my Oscar now.
I love it, because we're going to play this clip after you win your Oscar, and you called it,
I love it. No, I think
Manifest.
it is very similar, though. I think it is this thing of, like, you want to repeat it over and over and over again. And I think the difference, I guess maybe the one difference is, like, I want to repeat it, but I want to repeat it playing a completely different character. I want to do something that absolutely terrifies me and scares me, and I'm like, I don't think I can do this, guys. Like, I don't even know why you sent it. And then I actually get in there and do it, and then on the other side of it, like, you're back. You're back at Sundance, or you're back with your gold medal, but you're back doing it again. But you did it in a way that people maybe didn't think you could do it, the first time,
Yeah, I always think discovery is like a great source of joy. I feel like I heard that recently in a film, but to me, it really resonates. Yeah.
There's also a big difference and you find this, I'm sure you're feeling it, you're gonna find it like when you're on the journey of anyone's career in anything. This is not specific to a career. Trying to prove yourself, right? And then when you do prove yourself, and now you've done the thing, now you have to prove it right. And then at some point, people are gonna hate on you, so now you have to prove them wrong. Yeah. And it's just like these different phases as you have success, that it kind of shifts, and you have to shift your mentality with it. Because it's just the hunger you have when you've never done something before is different than the hunger you have when you're like, okay, I've done it now a lot. Like I now need to stay up here. Yeah. And that's like a different type of mentality again. And then if maybe you have, like myself in my 30s, you have some failures. And now you're like, man, everybody's telling me I'm done. And now it's like a whole other thing I gotta prove. Yeah. And it kind of comes in phases, and you have to be willing to shift with it. And sometimes that can be really hard for people because you just wanna hang on to the one thing that worked. Yeah. Like it worked this time. And that's why it's really incredible to hear you say you want different roles to challenge you in ways that you've never been before. Because a lot of people might be like, oh, I'll take the same role, it had success. I could see that.
I can't play a love interest. I got nothing to give.
I mean, nothing to give. When you came to my favorite is you came to what ended up being my final game in 2021. It was a playoff game. And it was like all my teammates were like, is that Lawrence? Is that Lawrence? I was like, well, yeah, it's Jay, but, and I'm like, I can only, like heartthrob, I can only imagine walking around as you. All my teammates, our head coach was like, we had just lost, the season was over. Can you take me to meet Lawrence? I was like, yeah, I'll tell you about my retirement. I'm deciding, but yeah, here's Lawrence.
Do you get used to the fact that so many people know who you are, but you don't know who they are? I always wonder
you've dealt with that way longer than me, for sure.
I always wonder that, because when you see someone that you follow, and you're like, I know so much about you.
You're like making me think of Zoolander.
Yeah, I'm like,
it's like every time they take a picture, they're taking a little bit of my. Yeah. I've never thought about it. I think for the most part, I enjoy it, and I think it's cool. It doesn't bug me. Yeah. I mean, every now and then there are people who are maybe like a little rude, and that can be tough. Yeah. But for the most part, I enjoy it. I think it's a part of being an athlete. It's the only way to grow it. Yeah. And it's not so bad. Yeah. I'm not a heartthrob, though. Yeah,
get out of here. Yeah, you are. Yes, you are. And there's a woman in this room that would say you are. So, no, I think the same. Like, I think I'm grateful for it because it means I'm getting to do the thing that I want to do, and it means that it's reaching people, right? Do I love necessarily being called Lawrence all the time? It's a mixed bag. Like some days I'm like, yeah, Lawrence did that. Yeah. And then some days I'm like, oh God, I'm not your boyfriend. Yeah. I get it. But at the end of the day, like, I really always come back to like, I'd rather that than not. Yeah. Right? Because it means, again, that like I'm doing the thing that I set out to do, and it means that it's reaching people. Yeah.
So, you were talking a little bit about success. What does success look like for you both now? Because it's really easy to measure it by winning games, winning awards. But what are other measures of success for you?
Yeah, I think I'm actually so curious because you're in like a new phase of your life. I mean, obviously I know more about this than probably everybody else, but like I'm just so curious, like what is that for you?
Yeah, it's actually still, so there's no more championships to win, and I'm not getting with a team per se in that way and going on this journey. But what remains the same is, as a retired player, I still have the ability to create paths and kind of break down doors and open up possibilities for younger players. I always joke, and I really mean it. It's like, once this media deal hits, I hope there's $1 million contract. And I will both be jealous as all hell that I didn't get it, but also really proud of the fact that I know I played a role. And I now see that exact feeling play out in retirement, in that I can do a bunch of different things, whether it's Together, Touch More, other businesses I'm getting into. I just joined a firm called Deep Blue, and it's my way of continuing to leave my fingerprints, just in a different way. And there's not necessarily a championship, but there's definitely measures of success. And I think the big measure will be, where do we see the game in 10 years? Where do we see women's athletes in 10 years? And I know now I'm behind the scenes, but I'll still have my fingerprints, and that's really exciting for me.
I would say, for me, it's having work that I'm proud of. When it's all said and done, you guys will all know, you'll hear this now, when I start dying and stuff, when I'm like the grandpa who dies and I'm done. That's when I'm retiring, I'm not working no more, I'm out. But I think until that point, when I get there, like being able to look back at my work and be proud of it and know that like it was meant for the moment that it was in, and hopefully it stands the test of time as well and people still go back to it. I think that to me feels like success. It feels like I have gotten to create this body of work that I am very proud of. And also, again, like it reached people and it will stand, hopefully, again, stand the test of time. I think to me that feels like a measure of success. I think the other thing is like, I deal with this a lot and like, I would imagine like probably you had to deal with this to some degree. I'm sure you do actually, especially just in the city of Seattle alone, but like, I want people to be entertained every single time. Like I don't want to disappoint an audience. Like I truly believe that like I am so grateful to get to do the thing that I do, and it's because people trust that when they show up, they're gonna like it. They're gonna be entertained. They're gonna be drawn in. They're gonna cry. They're gonna be mad. Whatever it is. And so like I take that I carry that responsibility in a weird way, probably more than I should. But I think again, like knowing that people show up and they're excited and they like a thing, I think to me is also a measure of success, at least in the work, in a lot of ways.
For me as an athlete, it was, I wanted to create an atmosphere in Seattle that when I stepped on the floor, I've already said this about my teammates, but it exists for the fans. When I stepped on the floor and the ball got in my hands, everyone went, okay, we're gonna be okay. And I always wanted our fan base to feel that way, you know, whether it was I was gonna make the right play or maybe hit the big shot, you never know. But they were just like, oh, Sue's got it, we're gonna be all right.
We still feel that way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I love that sentiment. So, you know, I know we're about to wrap, but I want to know what you both do to take care of yourselves. I think it's so important because you shoulder so much. You're in the spotlight. You're using your platform. So what does it look like to just take time for yourself?
I'm currently in a little bit of a journey around my working out. It was serving a purpose for so long. It was like a means to an end, and I had to do it. So there was like guilt surrounding that at times. But now I've like started to see like, oh no, I just feel better. It actually just makes me feel better, even if it's like 20 minutes. Ugh, on the Peloton. I hate the Peloton right now. But even if it's just that, which 20 minutes on the Peloton is amazing. 20 minutes in anything is amazing. It's just in my former life, 20 minutes wasn't enough. You needed more. It had to be harder. So it's just kind of but I'm starting to realize like I still very much find a lot of my self-care in working out. I try to prioritize sleep as much as I can. Not always easy, but I do try. I go to therapy like I mentioned earlier. I feel like that's like the mental side of things. And then this has always been for me, even as a player, I like to like have fun with my friends, and I make sure I carve out time for that. You know, going to a restaurant, it's nothing crazy, but like just making sure you're going out to eat with friends or having them over or getting away, I guess, like disconnecting from your work life and just making sure you have fun. Like that definitely re-energizes me.
Jay?
Yeah, getting away, I think, is the thing that I always come back to. I think working out for me is that. It is just time where like I can only think about this thing that I'm doing right now, or else I'm gonna hurt myself. But I also think like I read a lot, and I think it did not start by choice. My mother made me do book reports every summer when I was a kid. And so I've ultimately fell in love with reading because of that, but it's something that has like just stuck with me. And I think to be able to escape and just like not look at the phone, not think about work, and just be in another world, I think is big for me. And then the other thing is like, all the people who are here who are in my life know this, I love a project. Like, I'm like, oh, I just told my publicist today, I was like, I'll come to your house and hang your TV, and I'll hang paintings on your wall. And I was like, you want me to paint your wall? No, I'll paint your wall. Don't worry about it. I got it, girl. I'll be over there next week. I love a project. I love a project. If y'all need some remodeling, call me. If you live in LA, I don't travel. But but I love a project. Because again, it's just, it's something where like I get to make something. I get to do something with my hands, and also my brain is just like completely being used in another way and not focused on reading a review or you know whatever. Calling my agents. Where's my Oscar? I'm sorry, I'm joking, guys. No.
Is there a question that you want to ask each other? I want to end it with you all asking something, if there is.
What's your top 3 favorite movies?
This is an impossible question. Okay, so this is how I do this, because it is an impossible question. I've watched a lot of movies.
You know what this is? This is the top 5 athlete question. That's why she's
No,
like,
no,
this
no,
is
no.
impossible.
I'm not gonna bob and weave
Okay.
it. I like to pick movies that like changed me.
Okay.
So that's how I like do it. Because I could sit here and I could rattle off like A Few Good Men's in my top. Because I can rewatch that and do the lines, much to Megan's. The other day it was on TV and I was literally doing the entire court scene. She was like, "Are you gonna stop?" I was like, "No, I'm not. You ruined the final of Game of Thrones for me. I'm ruining this for you." Okay, so now I have to think. American History X is in my tops. These are all gonna be dark. Okay, this one, I've only watched it once because it messed me up. Requiem for a Dream. Messed me up. So that's in my top. You know what? I'm gonna throw a light one in there. I love Zoolander. I already brought it up.
I love that.
I love Zoolander.
That.
Sometimes, it changed me in that I realized I wasn't ever gonna be a male model.
Yeah.
So, but I do like Sting. There's a lot happening there.
I love that.
Can I just ask the same one back?
Oh,
All
okay.
right, I'll do athletes. How about that?
Athletes?
Top 3, any sport, favorite athletes.
Super.
Yeah.
Megan,
Can't
shout
pick
out.
me.
Shout out, Megan.
Growing up.
Growing up. Okay. Growing up. I mean, I'm gonna go with Dion because he was he was playing 2 sports at one time, which was bonkers. Not the only guy to do it at the time, but was absolutely bonkers, and was good in both. Great in one, good in the other one. Ryan would know. Okay. Michael Jordan. I still want to be like Mike. Oh man, and my third. I'm probably gonna say, this is random because I don't even love baseball this much, but I think I'm gonna say Ozzie Smith because I used to love watching him do the flips when he would run out. Every time he would run out, if you guys know who Ozzie is, he would run out and he would do a flip every time he would go out towards second base, and it would make me so happy to just see that. I don't know why.
That's your Zoolander.
Yeah, that's my Zoolander.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for for being so open, for talking. Definitely check out Freaky Tales and Sue Bird in the Clutch. It premieres Sunday. So thank you all for being here.